Hi kids, happy Tuesday and welcome to The Fight. Great to have you with us. That's Andrew, I'm Randy. Happy First Alert Weather Day. Don't go out, don't go out. Just stay in here with us. You're gonna stay in. So let's talk some sports. There's lots to get to today. We're gonna talk to Katie Woo. It's 70 degrees in Jupiter. We're gonna see what Jupiter looks like. We've got a discussion about the Cardinal position battles, a power play, big time power play in college football. And of course, we're gonna build a parlay later in the show. And you can help us out. Are we gonna finally win one of those things?
We better, or else people will stop texting in.
Yeah, people will lose faith in our ability to win bets.
Just 2 legs instead of 3.
Maybe we should start doing that. But let's get started with this. Matthew Tkachuk missed the USA 2-1 loss in the Four Nations face-off to Sweden last night. Then Brady got hurt and missed the second half of the game. Both expect to play tomorrow in the championship game against Canada. But with the Tkachuks and Austin Matthews out last night, the USA had trouble generating much offense. Matthew and Brady have made quite the impression, though, in this tournament. And you think about what they have done for American hockey. And I'm sure that a lot of kids are watching and enjoying what they're seeing. Not necessarily the fighting, although that kind of draws you in, but those kids having so much fun, not kids anymore, but those guys having so much fun playing hockey, and the two brothers kind of standing above and beyond the rest of the USA team.
Yeah, not just the effect on American hockey, but the effect on St. Louis Blues hockey, just here locally. How many fans I've seen clamoring, saying they'll write letters to Doug Armstrong to sign or trade for both Matthew and Brady. There's not really a chance that that's possible because of the dollar amounts that both of those guys carry. But still, I'm with you. If you could have these guys on your team, you want them. They are the best thing that's happened to USA hockey in a long time. It provided a boost for young hockey players to want to be like those two guys, and knowing that they came from good backgrounds, they put their head down, their nose to the ice, they went for it, they delivered, and they're showing that on the biggest stage. They're guys that you want to root for. They're the Micah Ruzionis of today.
They play just like their dad played. And he was the last guy to have a fight in international competition back in 1996. And Big Walt, if you're watching these two, Brady and Matthew, you're seeing a later version of Big Walt. Now, the U.S. already has Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel and Jake Gensel and the Hughes brothers, who we aren't even seeing all of them. But you'd think that with the young athletes that are joining hockey now, all over the country. Austin Matthews is from Scottsdale, kids from LA, kids from Miami now, after they won the Stanley Cup last year. USA hockey can draw even more good athletes and get even better than it is right now. They've got the best goalie in the world in Connor Hellebuck. They've got the Tkachuks, who bring more grit and toughness than anybody else. They've got the skill. Austin Matthews is the best goal scorer right now in the National Hockey League. So there is so much to like about USA hockey and where they're headed in the Olympics next year.
I love that you used the word young, because this team is so young, Randy. And it starts with, as you said, Austin Matthews. Jake Gensel was the oldest guy you mentioned, and he's, 30 years old at this point? But they are so young, and not only does that allow you to build from something like this and just show how deep they will be for years and years to come. It's not just going to be all right, this is their year, and now they have to figure out how they're going to turn over. No, that turnover also is the team that you saw win World Juniors just at the time when the Blues played in the Winter Classic. They beat Finland, and that just goes to show how even further along this development program is.
And you might not remember this, but I'm going to give some credit where credit is due. And this is with all due respect to another native St. Louis, and Pat LaFontaine, who was a wonderful player in the 80s. But the guy who set the USA on this trajectory to where they are right now is Brett Hull. Brett Hull was a major megastar. He's a guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He's a guy that was on Letterman. He's a guy that was all over the sports world. As a hockey player in the early 90s, you couldn't get away from Brett Hull. And he was charismatic. He was very likable. He scored a ton of goals. And if there's one guy that made the difference for what we're talking about today, USA hockey being great, it's Brett Hull. Certainly in this town, but I think across the country, Brett Hull made a difference and drew people into hockey. Obviously, as a Canadian Wayne Gretzky, people were watching him, but for an American guy like Brett Hull to do it made all the difference in the world. Now, we had the discussion about whether or not the Tkachuk brothers are the best duo to ever play the game. Well, no, they aren't. Hall of Famers Henri and Maurice Richard, the Rocket.
The Rocket.
You had Phil and Tony Esposito. Tony was a goalie. Phil was a 76 goal scorer in the 70s. They're both in the Hall of Fame. Bobby Hull, another Hall of Famer, and Dennis Hull. But if we talk about Americans, I would think former Blue Joey Mullen and his brother Brian, I think they're catchable for the Tkachuk brothers. I could absolutely see Brady and Matthew, when their careers are done, being considered the best pair of American brothers that we've ever seen on a rink.
Yeah, you know, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you have the Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes that will battle that accolade, but just in general, these are two guys that, you know, frankly, because they're on different teams, that allows them to not only have the statistics to kind of match up with all those guys over the years, but they can kind of write their own destiny at the same time. When you look at like the Sedin brothers, for example.
The Sedin sisters.
That is another way to say it, right? But they played on the same team, so because of that, they were at a disadvantage when it comes to stats because while one guy was scoring, the other guy was gathering assists, or vice versa. But when you get guys like the Tkachuks that are on their own separate teams, and they are not only some of the most talented in the NHL today, but proving that they can be superstars on their said teams, that is the difference from somebody that were paired together. So maybe my point about St. Louis doesn't really make a lot of sense for them in terms of being the best ever to do it as brothers.
By the way, Ottawa has a chance to make the playoffs. How about if Ottawa plays Florida in a playoff series? Brady against Matthew in a playoff series. That,
I'll
at this
tune in
stage
for
of
it.
their careers, would be epic. And one other note, you might have watched the USA and Sweden last night. Don't worry about the USA. They weren't as motivated. They didn't have Matthews. They didn't have Brady for most of the game. They didn't have Matthew Tkachuk. I'm not worried about this team tomorrow night at all. They'll be fired up. They'll be in Boston. They'll be on American ice. And I have no concerns about their ability to be up for the game. From a talent standpoint, Canada's still really good. Should be a great game, one of the best games we've ever seen. I'll be tuned in. But I'm not going to let last night concern me about what I think about tomorrow's game. I think tomorrow's game will be epic.
Gosh, how much is Sweden kicking themselves right now for letting Finland beat them in overtime?
Yeah,
I mean,
they could have been there.
Game told their story of this tournament.
Yeah. Hey, later in the show, you can help us build a parlay, and we really need your help.
Please.
We want to win one of these babies. So find a single bet that you like on DraftKings. Go to your phone right now. Go to DraftKings. Pick out a bet for tonight, and Andrew will make a bet. I'll make a bet, and you'll see it later in the show. You'll have a bet, and we'll put them all together and build a parlay. All you need to do is text your bet. Very simple. Like if you're going to take Mizzou's not playing tonight, but Mizzou -4 wherever they are. Just give us that bet, and we'll put it up on the board and see if our parlay can hit. The text number 314-624-0414, 314-624-0414. And if you have any questions about sports, we'll answer them later in the show. You want to ask about the Tkachuks, you want to ask about the Cardinals, we've got a segment called Just Asking. But coming up here on the show, text or email us. The email address, thefight@matrixmidwest.com. Andrew, the Cardinals are into spring training now, and there are going to be some competitions for jobs. All right, let's start with center field, because Lars Nootbaar has suddenly entered that mix with Nolan Arenado being on the team. So it's Ciani or Scott or Nootbaar. I don't see a scenario in which Michael Ciani, who Oli Marmol loves, or Victor Scott II beat out Lars Nootbaar. I think Lars' offense overshadows their excellence in defense, and I think Lars is the Cardinals' starting center fielder.
By far, absolutely. Ciani is definitely the best defensively in terms of how far along he, and gosh, this is the hardest word to use here because it's not that he's that much further along than Victor Scott, but he does have the leg up over him, and since he is defensively prioritized, that gives him the leg on the bench. But I'm with you. Lars Nootbaar's bat is what you need in the lineup, plus he offers athleticism when he is healthy. He is a good defender. He's just not as good as Michael Ciani, and I think Lars would admit that to you as well. So Victor Scott will start the year in AAA. That would be my guess. Ciani would be on the bench, and then Lars Nootbaar would be the starting center fielder.
And if you have a lead after 7, then you probably take the left fielder out of the game, move Lars to left, and Ciani to center. Speaking of left field, the presence of Nolan Arenado changes that too, because Brendan Donovan was going to be your second baseman. Now he probably moves to left field to compete with Alec Burleson. And I think Brendan Donovan is an easy choice here.
No doubt. Brendan Donovan will be in the lineup every single day. And whether that's at second base, say Nolan Gorman's taking a seat on the bench, or it's out in left field, he has to play. So unfortunate for Burley. Burley's kind of the odd man out of every equation. He's the odd man out at first base. He's the odd man out in left field. He's kind of the odd man out at DH even when Gorman isn't playing second base.
But here's the thing. I would think that Donovan or Burleson will get a chance to be the left-handed designated hitter. I would think a guy like Ivan Herrera will get a lot of opportunity to be the DH as a right-handed hitter, but I think Burley could be the left-handed DH. Now, we talked about Herrera, 2 catchers, and you and I disagree on this. I'm a Pages guy all the way. I am all about defense behind the plate. You're more of a, you don't care about the fact that the guy can't throw. I know you like the bat, but it's Pages versus Herrera. I've got Pages. He can hit a little bit, but I'm taking him primarily because of his defense. Make your case for Ivan Herrera.
Well, you're right that Pages is the safer option, but I do love that big bat behind home plate. Maybe a more consistent bat behind home plate, but really it's not up to me. It's not up to you. It's up to the pitchers, right? At the end of the day, the way I kind of look at this is maybe it's like, a few years back when Gary Sanchez and Kyle Higashioka were kind of the 1-2 punch there in New York, but Garrett Cole was like, I'm going to pitch to Kyle. I don't really want to pitch to Gary Sanchez. Maybe there's a situation where, Sonny Gray steps up and I love Pages. I'm pitching to Pages, but then Eric Fetty steps in and says, my guy is Ivan Herrera. And whatever dynamic that looks like, I'm thinking it's more up to the pitcher than anything else.
Just don't allow base runners if you're a pitcher that's throwing to Herrera, who's a really good player. Back in 2020, the Cardinals thought he was going to be the heir to Yadier Molina. This is what we're talking about when we talk about their lack of evaluation in the system. They thought that he was a great defensive catcher and had no idea that he can't throw out base runners. And so last year they set him down. They had him working on his arm. Doesn't look like that's going to happen for Herrera. So he's going to have to be a part-time player or a DH, or maybe you move him to first. He's not really a power hitter. I'll be interested to see how the Cardinals utilize Ivan Herrera. Okay, now the bullpen to me looks wide open, Andrew. You've got Helsley and Fernandez. I think they're locks in the back end. But then you've got Riley O'Brien, Graceffo, Kyle Leahy, who's going to start so that he can give him some innings during spring training, Ryan Ludus, Chris Roycroft, and then a newcomer, Roderick Munoz. You've got 6 guys for 4 right-handed spots.
Yeah, and you nailed it with Helsley and Fernandez. Those seem like the 2 sure options on the back end, and then you may even mix in a starter here or 2, but you like Riley O'Brien.
I like saying his name, Riley O'Brien.
You just want to be the John Hewlett when he comes into the ball game, but there is one guy on that list that you mentioned, and that's Ludus, that I'm intrigued about. If there's anybody that I could say would be the breakout candidate of this bullpen, I think I'd attach that to Ludus's name. He came in a little bit last season. He was good in his few innings that he appeared in. He was good at WashU. I believe he took that WashU team to a D2 championship, if I'm not mistaken. He's a great pitcher, but he just needs to kind of work on his location and executing his away pitches and things like that.
And right now, my 4 would be O'Brien, Leahy. I'm with you with Ludus and Roycroft. I think Munoz and Graceffo would be the 2 guys out. Let's quickly get to the lefties because we both have, if Steven Matz winds up in the bullpen, you're going to have 3 lefty relievers. Liberatore is a lock. Matz would be a lock. So now you're looking at John King, Jojo Romero, Zach Thompson, or CD-Rom. His real name isn't CD-Rom, just Drew, but I like to call him CD-Rom. So I'm going with my 3rd guy there being Jojo Romero.
Yeah, for me, I think the Cardinals need a lefty in their starting rotation. So if that isn't Matt, I think it's got to be Zach Thompson or it's got to be Matthew Liberatore. So one of those guys will get removed at some point in time. Maybe it's a carousel of guys that are kind of cycling through. That's what the Cardinals want to do this year. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of piece together that back end.
More with our friend Katie Wu from The Athletic coming up at the bottom of the hour. We also want you to know that the Battlehawks kickoff celebration is tomorrow night, 5 to 8 at Ballpark Village. Coach Anthony Becht and several players will be there. Plus, you can pick up Battlehawks gear when you go to Ballpark Village tomorrow and check out the Battlehawks from 5 to 8. Coming up, Mike Trout changes positions. Rafael Devers doesn't want to. And the SEC and the Big Ten assert their power in college football. Next on Quick Hits. The Four Nations tournament wraps up tomorrow in Boston. 4 teams. If you could take one person from a different team and put them on your Four Nations team, who would you pick? I tell you what, it's pretty simple for me. My team is the USA, and I'm going to steal Connor McDavid from the Canadians, and I'm going to put him on my team. He's the best player in the world, and as good as my USA team is, Connor McDavid would make it better. How about you, Andrew?
Well, so for me, I'm with you. Connor McDavid is the best player in the world, but I kind of looked at it as where could the U.S. team fill their biggest, what would be their biggest void? So I'm going with Cale Makar. You know, defensively, they're strong. They have Werenski, they have Slavin, but after that, you go McAvoy and Adam Fox. I'd like Makar in that mix because he would really ramp up that area on the ice.
It is amazing that the guy who's leading the league in scoring was the MVP last year, and we all call Connor McDavid the best player in the game, but Nathan MacKinnon is right there with Connor McDavid, and I don't think he gets enough credit, and he and Makar together are a dynamic duo in Colorado. I love your Makar choice, but Nathan MacKinnon with his speed and his championship pedigree, he's won a Stanley Cup, led a team to a Stanley Cup, he'd be another guy to put on that list.
If you're any other team in the Four Nations tournament, are you taking Connor Hellebuck?
Yeah, if you're any other team, he's the best goalie in the world right now. You take him from the USA and you put him on your team, he's better than anybody. He's better than Binnington. He's better than Montembeault. He's better than Aiden Hill. He's better than Sweden's or Finland's best guy. Absolutely. I think that would be the one that you have to take. He's head and shoulders above every other goalie in the world right now.
I'm with you there.
Mike Trout making the move to right field just so he can have a spot. Trout might be the greatest baseball player whose career has been defined by injuries. If he had stayed healthy and played for a contender, man, would we view him differently. If he had been a healthy Yankee and led them to World Series, he would be right there among the best ever. But right now, because he's never been on a team that even won a playoff game, he's right there with Ken Griffey Jr., who never played in the World Series, Bo Jackson, who had all that potential, Eric Davis, who was so dynamic, he did win with the Reds in 1980 or 1990. Don Mattingly had to retire with a bad back. Mark Fidrich, a pitcher with the Tigers back in the 70s, at least for Steven Strasburg, who was one of the most hyped players in the history of baseball. At least the last thing he did was pitch at a World Series.
That is true.
For Washington. So he got the chance to win. But there are so many sad stories. And I think right now, I would say that Mike Trout is right there with the saddest of them.
I would agree. He is one of baseball's immortals if he stays healthy, but he doesn't. He could have been a Philadelphia Philly. He's a Philly guy. He could have brought them to multiple World Series and been that piece that they were missing, but he just couldn't stay on the field. He has a stupid high WAR. He's 3 AL MVPs. He has historic numbers, but from 2012 to about COVID is when all of that kind of happened. After the fact, he just couldn't be found out there on the diamond. He will go down to me in history as the player that is the greatest to ever play, but never got to really show himself.
Hey, and you might complain about the DeWitt ownership. How lucky are we that Albert Pujols got a chance to win a couple of
That's a
championships
great
here,
point.
Right?
That is a great point.
That ownership in Anaheim never did that for Mike Trout. They never understood the concept of pitching. The Athletic wrote one pressing question for all 30 major league teams heading into spring training. The Cardinals, can the team guarantee playing time to their young players? I would say yes, because they don't have any veteran players except for Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras.
I'm with you there. I think instead of a taxi squad, we'll see more of a bus line running back and forth from Memphis this year. And frankly, you can do that when you choose to, mix in different pieces here and there. They just have the options to say, hey, I want Gorman here tonight. I want Burleson here tonight. I want Newbar there tonight. You just have so many interchangeable options that the Cardinals are set up well to do that.
From a position playout perspective, every catcher every night is going to be young. Every middle infielder every night is going to be young. Every outfielder every night is going to be young. So, yeah, that's a guarantee. Now, the issue that I have is that somebody is going to be prevented from ascending among the starting pitchers because you're going to start Gray and Michaelis and Steven Matz and Fetty. I would like more of an opportunity for the young pitchers, the starting pitchers, to get an opportunity.
Randy, in 2023, the Angels set the record of bringing up the MLB call-up record of 69. Do the Cardinals beat that this year.
No, they don't. They want to look at the players that are here on the roster, and there's some talent there. Are they great baseball players? Don't know, but they have some talented players. The Angels didn't have the sort of talent that the Cardinals enjoy right now. So if the Cardinals stay healthy, I think that this group will probably be the core of what they have during the course of the 2025 season and beyond.
I think it really depends on if they're winning or losing, too. If they are winning games, I think you'll see a more structured lineup.
So Mike Trout willing to move to right field for the Angels. Rafael Devers is against being strictly a DH. He was under the impression that he'd be the long-term third baseman in Boston. And when they signed Alex Bregman, he said yesterday, quote, "Third base is my position. It's what I play. I don't know what their plans are. We had a conversation. I made it clear on what my desires were. Whatever happens from here, I don't know." When asked whether he would be willing to become a designated hitter, he said no, without even waiting for his interpreter to relay the question.
You know, it's not news that the Red Sox were looking for a third baseman. So where has Devers been all of this time? It's not like he doesn't have access to the internet and can see that they're heavily tied to Arenado, heavily tied to Alex Bregman. So if they were under the impression that you were going to be okay with a move or be okay with being a DH, then why did they go out and do that? You don't just sit back today and say, well, they didn't talk to me about it.
And there's a great old adage in baseball, and it goes like this: if you don't like it, play better. Rafael Devers has not been a very good third baseman. He got a little bit better last year, but Alex Bregman won a Gold Glove last year. So you've got a guy that is limited defensively and one of the best in baseball. Why not play the best guy in baseball? And if you're a player that's self-aware, you say, you know what, to help the team, and this is what Alex Cora, the manager, talked about. To help the team, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win ball games. If that's at DH, I'll do it. If that's at first base, I'll do it. Rafael Devers, he has the contract already. He needs to grow up and do the things that the Red Sox need him to do.
First point, we pay you to be a baseball player. You play where we tell you to. Second point, I'd love being a DH, so you should too.
Hey, leaders of the SEC and Big Ten conferences are meeting this week in New Orleans, where they're expected to push forward with a full-on takeover of the college football playoff. Yes, that's what they're going to do. They're going to steamroll everybody. Beginning in 2026, the field would expand to 14 or 16 teams from 12, and the Power 2, the SEC and the Big Ten, would grant themselves 4 automatic berths each, so that would be 8 of the 14 or 16. The ACC and the Big 12 would each get 2 teams, the group of 5 1, leaving just 1 or 3 at-larges. The right move by the SEC and the Big 10. You got the power, you wield the power, and hey, they deserve to have 4 teams. Are they the best? Here's my question. Could any team from the ACC or the Big 12 come into the SEC and finish in the top 4?
No.
So let's just be real here. The SEC and the Big 10 are the powers of college football, and if they can do it, they should, and they're doing the right thing.
I like it. I like it, frankly. I don't know how else to put it. We saw this year when the bye teams were in the semifinal games, they were double-digit underdogs. Boise State was a double-digit underdog. Arizona State was a double-digit underdog, and neither team moved on. Did Arizona State put up a fight? Sure, but they still weren't the best teams to be there. By having this expanded SEC Big Ten lineup, you will get better football, and fans just want to see good games.
And great news for Mizzou and Illinois. Mizzou and Illinois can both finish in the top 4 in their conference, right? Illinois in the Big Ten, Mizzou in the SEC. You finish 4th in the conference, and then all of a sudden you're a playoff team. So this is also good news for the University of Illinois and the University of Missouri. Hey, be part of the show. Our text line, 314-624-0414. Shoot us an email, thefight@matrixmidwest.com. Coming up, our friend Katie Wu from The Athletic with her Tuesday visit here on The Fight. Welcome back to The Fight. Our friend Katie Wu is down in Jupiter. She's very busy. She writes for The Athletic, the longtime, and it's amazing to say, longtime Cardinal beat writer for The Athletic. She's got the Cards Territory podcast with former Cardinal closer Trevor Rosenthal. She's a teammate of ours right here at First Alert 4 here at Matrix Midwest. And Katie joins us from Jupiter. Katie, good morning. How you doing?
Gentlemen, good morning. How are you?
Everything's wonderful here in St. Louis, aside from the fact that this is a First Alert weather day. It's a First Alert nice weather day in Jupiter, isn't it?
Well, then I won't complain about the cloud coverage. It's really dampening my desire to tan and work at the same time. I'll let you guys have the complaints about the weather today.
So Nolan Arenado returned on Sunday. How was the first full day of Arenado being back? And Katie, is this story essentially over now?
I think everyone hopes so, but you can never say never with this St. Louis Cardinals organization. Nolan Arenado reported to Cardinals camp on Sunday at the position player report day. He was here at 7 a.m., and the first thing he did was meet with President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak and manager Ollie Marmol, and it was a conversation all three described as professional, friendly, and even cordial. Look, it's obvious. We know that the Cardinals tried for 4 months to trade Arenado. They weren't able to, so they are moving forward with him as their third baseman. I found this interesting, though. While Nolan declined to talk about specifics, he said he's just here to play baseball. He's a ball player. He wants to play, and wherever he is, he's going to give it all he's got. Most basically acknowledged that they would keep the door open for a potential trade down the road, but certainly he would not be exhausting the waiver wire or injuries, et cetera, like he spent the entirety of the offseason doing. If a potential fit emerges, they'll look into it for sure. However, it doesn't look like right now that there is a fit out there. So going forward, you guys, Nolan Arenado is going to be at the hot corner for St. Louis.
Katie, as you kind of think about the furthering down the road, do you get the sense that Nolan's going to be a Cardinal long term?
I think that depends on what our definition of long-term is. I certainly think he'll be the Cardinals' third baseman come opening day, barring an injury to some other contender that would then suddenly need a third baseman. But remember, the list that Nolan Arenado would approve a trade to was only 5 teams, and we only know 4 of them: the New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and San Diego Padres. Obviously, the Boston Red Sox, after signing Alex Bregman, are off that list of potential contenders. So would I say long term? Am I thinking towards the entire duration of his remaining contract? I don't know. That seems pretty far-fetched as to what the Cardinals want to accomplish. But do I see him here to start the season? I do.
Katie, before Nolan Arenado returned, I had a great Cardinal lineup, a place for everything and everything for a place. With Nolan here now, which position player is kind of the odd man out?
It's a great question, Randy, and that now becomes the most pressing question for the St. Louis Cardinals. And both Ollie Marmol and John Mozeliak alluded to this. They said the biggest thing about Nolan Arenado being back is that they have to reset their calculus. We spent the entire offseason talking about 2 words: opportunity and runway. And now the Cardinals organization must revert back and figure out if opportunity and runway truly exist. The 3 players the Cardinals want to see every day, regardless of where Nolan Arenado is, are Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker, and Nolan Gorman. There is still a way for all 3 of those players to see consistent everyday playing time with Nolan Arenado at the third base. What that means for Gorman, maybe he doesn't play third, he moves to second or a full-time DH. And you can switch Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker. He'll be in right field, and Lars potentially center, but definitely in left. What this really impacts are the players on the fringe of the roster. So you're thinking the role players. You're thinking Alec Burleson, Thomas Saggese, Victor Scott II, Mike Ciani. What does that mean for those guys? The Cardinals are still trying to figure that out. I asked Ollie Marmol, is this going to be a situation where you have a fluid lineup every day because of the positional flexibility over the majority of your roster? And he said, while that would help, he really doesn't want to bounce guys around for the sake of at-bats. He wants to stick to a consistent everyday lineup. What that lineup looks like remains to be seen.
Further that point for me, Katie, how big of a balancing act do you think it will be to not only stay competitive, but mix in the laundry list of young guys?
And this is where I think we're getting a lot of the fan frustration or apathy, right? Because for, again, 4 months, the Cardinals have spun their wishes of this being a season where they can transition, is the word John Mozeliak is now using, to a new era of Cardinals baseball. And by doing so, they want to give these players the runway we talked about. They also want to win games. So they're kind of balancing 2 roads here. And I think difficulty balancing identity is the perfect way to phrase this. The Cardinals want to be a competitive club. It's why they kept guys like Ryan Helsley, Eric Fetty, Steven Matz. But they also need to get this runway for their young players. So I see a lot of the fan frustration being as the Cardinals have yet to pick a direction and stick to it. And it certainly seems like they're running back the exact same roster as last year. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing if you want the St. Louis Cardinals to win as many games as possible? I wouldn't say that. I mean, they won 83 games last year with one of the worst performing offenses in the National League. So certainly there is some talent here. But again, it's all about picking a road and sticking to it. And right now, the Cardinals certainly seem content just running it back from last year.
Katie, in our opening segment, Andrew and I talked about the bullpen competition. And there are, I have Fernandez and Helsley as locks from the right side, and then I have it wide open. Can you give me an off-the-radar reliever that has a chance to make the team that maybe we aren't talking about or isn't obvious?
Well, we talked about this, Randy. Every year we come to camp and there's somebody that really was low on the totem pole and on our radar that all of a sudden bursts onto the scene. And my early pick here is Nick Anderson. He's a non-roster invite signed to a minor league deal. If he makes the major league roster, he's guaranteed $1.1 million. So that's certainly in the Cardinals' realm of spending. And he was a guy with the Tampa Bay Rays a few years ago who was a very serviceable reliever. Now, we haven't really seen him out minus a few bullpens and live BPs, so I'm excited to see what that looks like come games. But Nick Anderson is someone that I think brings experience and some durability. And sure, he's coming off a couple of down seasons, but the Cardinals were adamant that they wanted to add somewhat of a veteran reliever with experience to help what is, honestly, with the exception of Ryan Helsley, a pretty inexperienced bullpen. Nick Anderson is the name I'm watching, at least for now.
Good one. And by the way, he was great for the 2020 Rays. It was only a 60-game season, but that's the guy when Blake Snell was pulled early against the Dodgers in Game 6. Nick Anderson was the guy that came in and gave up the 2 runs. He pitched so well for them, and it's still one of the most controversial moves in World Series history. But that's Nick Anderson's claim to fame, is that he was the guy that replaced Blake Snell that night.
You're right. I totally forgot about that, Randy. So maybe not exactly the claim to fame you want. Maybe he can right the ship here in St. Louis.
Katie, I'm thinking about a lefty now, not just in the bullpen, but in the starting rotation. Who's the one southpaw you see making the biggest impact in 2025?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I don't think he's going to make the opening day roster. I certainly think there is a ton of rightful excitement about pitching prospect Quinn Matthews. Saw him out here a couple times through some live BPs. And this is just someone, when you think about what he went through in 2024, the quick ascension through the minor leagues, the multiple promotions, the fact that the Cardinals have not really had a true viable homegrown starter since Jack Flaherty. This is exciting because while right now the rotation looks to be pretty veteran heavy, right? Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz, you go down the list. There is room, maybe, depending on where the Cardinals traject this season and how their season transpires, for some of these young guys like Mike McGreevy or Quinn Matthews to possibly make the club. So I'm not sure that he'll necessarily have an impact in the first half of the season, but depending how the year goes, I certainly think we can see Quinn Matthews. And if I'm a fan that's looking for the future, that's the name I'm watching.
This is not a conversation we like to have, Katie, but it's real. And I don't know where the Cardinals stand here, but do you think that with a guy like Matthews, especially with where they are, not necessarily planning to win in 2025, you think there's concern about starting the Quinn Matthews clock for service time?
You know, that's a great question, Randy. I'm not sure that's really ever come up because I don't see him breaking into this mold to start camp anyway. On the depth chart, we just went through the 4 veterans. Andre Palante is going to get a deserved look in this rotation. Mike McGreevy is the next man up. And honestly, if Mike McGreevy has a great spring, the Cardinals will have a difficult decision to make on who takes over that 5th starter. There's also guys that the Cardinals like to see more of. Gordon Graceffo, perhaps. I mean, he's a little bit in a versatile role right now. Can start, can relieve. They've stretched out Matthew Liberatore, though it certainly seems like his best direction would be a reliever. You know, there's Drew Rahm, who's come back from injury. So if they need a spot start, they don't necessarily have to go to their top pitching prospect. They do have some depth for the first time in a while, might I add. So I don't really think it's necessarily a conversation of starting the clock or service time, more as not rushing up a top prospect and throwing him into a role he's not ready for. The Cardinals, at least to start the season, look like they have enough depth to really pace themselves on the development of their starting pitchers. And that's been a key word as well this winter, Randy, development. So I don't see them rushing him up just for the sake of doing so. Okay,
a word that people in sports management hate, that those of us in sports talk love: hypothetical. If we reach the deadline on July 31st and the Cardinals are 2 or 3 games out in the wild card and Arenado has been good, but there's a team that's interested, what do the Cardinals do?
Oh, that's a great question. You guys have brought it today. I need to step my game up when I go back in that clubhouse. And I think that's, if the Cardinals get to that point, again, there is an open door where Nolan could be traded depending on if the situation changes. Right now, the situation is just that there is not a fit out there for him. I don't know. And it also depends on what Nolan wants. His full no trade clause plays a ton into this. So if Nolan's having a bounce back year like he firmly believes that he will, and the Cardinals are 2-3 games out of the wild card, and the teams that are inquiring seem to be around the same place, I'm not sure what either party would do. What I think this winter has reminded us all is that when you are dealing with a player with a full no trade clause, and you're an organization that has a pretty strict parameter set on the money that you can take, a trade is not exactly the most likely to happen. So for this hypothetical situation, there are so many different outliers. My gut says that both parties would at least explore it, but it just depends on so many different things, where the Cardinals are in the standings, how good they look as a team, how Nolan's playing, how possible trade partners would fit. I don't know, Randy. It's fascinating, though. I have a feeling, even though Nolan Arenado is here, at least for the short term, this story is far from over.
Katie, I'll give you a softball on the way out since we've been hard on you today. What's just made you smile down at spring training this year?
Oh, finally, something that doesn't, like, I don't know, freeze my brain. I, for the first time out on the backfields, heard music playing during batting practice. And that might sound like not that big of a deal, but it really was just like a more relaxed vibe. And usually on the backfields for first full squad, it's business as usual. But to just see these guys hanging out, laughing, music playing, I mean, it's so quiet back here usually that we can hear the music coming from the Miami Marlins complex. So to just, at least the roster might not look a little younger, guys, but the vibes are. So there are baby steps there. I love full squad this week here. If you're a Cardinals fan and you haven't been to spring training, I would say come to this more than the games. The access is unreal. And just to hear the interactions, the banter between players, what guys are working on, how they communicate, the drills they run so they can execute in real time during the games, you just learn so much about baseball. It's honestly, in my opinion, one of the best weeks of the year.
Okay, a couple of more quick things. Number one, did you sense the irony yesterday when Mo had said, I'm not going to wake up and check the injury reports every day, and then the Monday injury report finds out that Giancarlo Stanton has tendonitis in both elbows and hasn't picked up a bat for weeks? Kind of ironic, isn't it?
A little bit. And I think the Cardinals are happy because as of this morning, every single player has reported to camp on time and healthy, but it was just a matter of time. Full squad reports, so do injuries. Again, I don't know if necessarily Stanton's injury would impact the Yankees so far, where they would maybe consider negotiating with Arenado's camp. But unfortunately, Randy, we'll see a bunch. I mean, Frankie Montas with the Mets, that was such a big acquisition for them. And he's hurt as well. He's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks with a lat strain, and then will require 6 weeks of a ramp-up time. So they're really not picturing him back until mid-May. Hopefully for the Cardinals case, nothing like that happens. They seem to like their squad, at least to compete in the division. We'll see how that goes.
Katie, did you take your clubs to Florida with you?
I did do that, and I'm hoping I'll get 1 half day so I can go try not to shoot double bogey golf like normal. So we'll see.
No snowmen.
Yeah, take a look at this. Take a look at the screen there, and that's a live shot of Busch Stadium right there.
Okay, well, this is a good reminder for me that things could always be worse, guys.
Absolutely. You're awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. Great to have you with us, and we enjoy these visits immensely, and can't wait to see you back here, but enjoy your time down there, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Awesome. Great questions, guys. I'm going to carry that same energy into the clubhouse. You have a great week.
All right. You too, Katie. Thank you. Katie Woo from The Athletic. You can hear her on the Card Territory podcast with former Cardinal Trevor Rosenthal. And she'll be with us here on First Alert 4 and, of course, Matrix Midwest all baseball season long. Coming up, we need your help to make a parlay. We'll each make one and make a bet. You can text in your bet to help us out with a single bet on DraftKings for a game tonight. Text in 314-624-0414. Risky business next. All right, time to do some betting. Time for some risky business here in the fight. Andrew and Randy and you, Jacob, has texted in with a bet for tonight. You know, Andrew, I look at what Mizzou did against Texas A&M, lost at home on a three-pointer at the end of the game, and then what they did at Mississippi State, where they took care of Mississippi State in good fashion. So Texas A&M tonight is at Mississippi State. I like A&M on the road, and they've got 3 points, 3.5. They're given 3, and so minus 140. I'm going to go with Texas A&M to win at Mississippi State. That's going to be my bet as we build a parlay.
And that's above the key number, and I love your train of thought there, Randy, going back, dating it, and tying it to our local squad, the Mizzou Tigers. For me, I'm going with the late game in the college basketball slate, a big one, KU on the road at BYU. I'm taking BYU. I got to take the home team here, and the reason I'm taking BYU is KU has struggled on the road lately. I believe they're on a 4-game losing streak. streak, and BYU plays very good interior defense. So with all of that being said, I don't trust Kansas shooting the three. They didn't shoot it well last game. Give me BYU. Give me the Cougars.
My first, when I was looking for a bet, I was looking at this one, and I was looking at KU. And you study them, and you think, well, it's Kansas.
Yeah, they should win.
Right, it's KU, and they should be angry because they're ranked 23rd. They just aren't that good. That's the problem with the Jayhawkers right now.
And I love that it's right below the key number of 3. So give me BYU 80-77.
All right, Jacob in Illinois has sent us a text, and we appreciate Jacob's bet.
And he is going with Purdue, Michigan State. Is he Purdue money line? Did I have that right?
Purdue money line.
Purdue money line. So Purdue tonight is the road team, which kind of gives me, I'm a little shaky betting the road team every now and then. But plus 140 with Purdue is a good number to add into our juicy parlay.
Purdue's pretty darn good. They might be the best team in the Big Ten, right?
They may be. And it's not the number that we normally are at, which tells us that we probably have a pretty good shot at hitting today's bet.
Yeah.
We're normally in the thousands. This payout, though, only $769. Only.
Yeah. So let's hope we can get some winning done here. That's today's Build a Parlay, and don't forget, we need you to build the parlay every single day. If you have an idea for tomorrow's bet, go to DraftKings throughout the day. And our text line is always open 24/7, or you can email us at thefight@matrixmidwest.com. Either way, we want to hear from you. Coming up, we have Take It or Leave It, plus birthdays and anniversaries on The Fight. All right, time for Tioli, and we saw the near tragic event yesterday in Toronto. A flight going from Minneapolis to Toronto. Here it is. It landed upside down. 80 people on board. No fatalities. So here's the question. Kind of a scary event. Take it or leave it. If you would have been on the plane that landed upside down in Toronto, you would get on a plane to return home to Minneapolis. Take it or leave it.
I am leaving that with the biggest check mark, Randy, I could probably put on the screen. There's no shot that after that traumatic event, that I would find myself back on the plane. Now, take it or leave it, Terrence Shannon Jr. was on that plane.
Yeah, to get his banner right side up again. I'll take that. Tyler, our director, has looked it up. It's a 14-hour drive from Toronto to Minnie. I'm getting in the car. I'm renting a car or a truck or a van or something. I'm driving the 14 hours. I'm not getting on a plane to go back from Toronto to Minneapolis after that happened to me yesterday.
Talk about a great road trip, too, a carpool of strangers, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Like a lot of road trip games.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Home Alone lady.
Yes. Was that Home Alone 2? Home Alone 1.
Home Alone 1.
That was Home Alone 1.
Yep.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. 2 was in New York. Mine, well, this isn't in New York. Could be in Boston, probably not. It's the Four Nations tournament once again, and the big thing for me is every time I was watching these games, all I could think of was, gosh, what is Ovechkin thinking right now? What is Kucherov thinking right now? They'd want to play in an event like this. So take it or leave it, the Four Nations tournament, Randy, should expand to include Russia.
Okay, I understand the political ramifications here, but let's leave politics out of this. I'm going to take this because I don't think that the players and the fans have anything to do with Russia attacking Ukraine, and that's why Russia isn't in this. I don't think the players should be penalized. I don't think the Russian fans should be penalized. So I'm going to take this, that Russia should be one of the teams, although you'd have to make it a 6-nation tournament. You can't have it 5 teams. But
sure.
Yeah, just add another country.
Yeah, just cycle them in. Who's another country up in the
Texas?
Texas is a country?
Yeah.
I'm going to take it too. I know exactly what you were saying in terms of everything that's kind of going on behind the scenes, but you don't want to penalize a guy like Ovechkin right now at the stage of his career where he could be on the biggest platform and be able to do something special like this.
Okay, Director Tyler has one for us.
And for that one, Tyler also wanted to keep the Four Nations as is and combine Finland and Sweden. I don't want to leave that out for him.
Yeah,
now,
lands, yeah.
Take it or leave it, Randy. Here's Tyler's. Winter Olympics are better than the Summer Olympics.
This is a very good question, and you know what? And by the way, Tyler loves curling, which is great. I'm going to take this. I'm going to, and I love the basketball. I love everything about the Summer Olympics, but I like the danger of the Winter Olympics. So I'm going to take this. That the winter are better than the summer.
They're completely different, like on both sides of the coin. I'm going to leave it, and the reason I'm going to leave it is my favorite Summer Olympic sport is swimming, and I don't want to lose swimming, so I can't overrule the swimmers out there for the Summer Olympics just to see hockey again and again and again. I just can't.
There you have it, Tioli here on The Fight. And let's take a look at some of the birthdays that are taking place today on this snowy day in St. Louis. Happy birthday to St. Louis and former Cardinal shortstop and general manager Dal Maxville. Dal is 86 today. Happy birthday to him. Also, former Redbirds outfielder, a guy that I use in Immaculate Grid a lot, Jerry Morales, turning 76 today. Former Cardinal and Cub. He bounced around in Major League Baseball. He's a good Immaculate Grid guy, kids. Put him to use.
.01, right?
Yeah, one of those, yeah. St. Louis and former NFL running back Ronnie Wingo, 34 today. Happy birthday to Ronnie Wingo. This is from his days at the University of Arkansas. He was a really good player, and he's 34 today. So happy birthday to Ronnie. And 1960, Blues winger. We got a photo of him. Ab McDonald was born on this date in 1936. I remember Ab McDonald playing. I liked Ab McDonald. Yeah, that's the goalie without a mask. How about that?
I was squinting
Did you know that happened? Were you aware?
I was aware of that.
So, yeah, Ab McDonald, born on this date in 1936, passed away in 2018. All right, anniversaries. On this date in 1991, this is unbelievable to think of, and we brought up Brett Hull and his influence on American hockey earlier. This date in 1991, in the Blues' 59th game of the year, 59th game, Brett Hull scores his 62nd and 63rd goals of the season in a 7-4 loss at Calgary. He had 63 goals after 59 games, Andrew.
Yeah, averaging a goal a game is crazy enough, but going over that number is even crazier.
Yeah, he was something. And as great as Austin Matthews was last year, I don't think anybody will ever get to 86 goals ever again.
No, it doesn't seem likely.
Most goals ever for a non-center in the history of the National Hockey League. Speaking of the Blues, The Note and Matrix Midwest are teaming up to go a little retro. We're going to air 6 of the most memorable games in franchise history. First one up, Brett Hull's 50 in 50 back in 1991. The second player to get 50 goals in 50 games. Blues alumni are going to provide never-before-heard commentary throughout each broadcast, giving you a behind-the-scenes look at their favorite games. See the action Sunday nights at 8, starting Sunday, this coming Sunday, the 23rd, right here on Matrix Midwest. That'll be fun. I can't wait to watch those games, and we've got some great classic Blues games coming up. Also, we want you to know that we have The Fight every Friday here in The Fight. We've got the Friday Fight, and you can join us. All you need to do is email us at thefight@matrixmidwest.com. You have to be available on Thursdays, and we'll do a quick Zoom. Takes 15, 20 minutes to do it. If you want to participate in the Friday Fight, just email us at thefight@matrixmidwest.com. We had a great time last week, and hopefully we'll have a lot of people that want to play.
Try to take the title home from Randy. He's showing off the belt every day. I want to see one of you guys defeat the master.
Yeah, so we'll record it on Thursday. We'll air it on Friday, and it's thefight@matrixmidwest.com. Tiger plays tonight in TGL Golf. That's on TV. His Jupiter team takes on Ricky Fowler's New York team on ESPN. Illinois at Wisconsin on FS1, and a big one in the SEC on SEC Network. Texas A&M visits Mississippi State. Be careful driving in the snow. You going to drive in the snow?
I'm going to, but I'm going to take it slow.
And I'm going to be careful too. For Andrew Rogers and our outstanding director Tyler Klaus, I'm Randy Karraker. Have a terrific Taco Tuesday, St. Louis. We'll see you tomorrow.